take fasts. So how could you do it in the Arctic when 6 months is day and 6 months is night? So it just shows it's limited, those laws that cannot be practiced everywhere on the planet. So the laws of Christianity and Hinduism and all. Baha'u'llah is the only global religion ever has occurred, that encompasses the whole planet, because he's been prophesied by all the religions of the past. So, it is very important that to get to this fact that what I just mentioned before about prophets being God themselves, and the prophet is just an alias. It's an avatar. That Indian actually used the word utar, which is avatar of God, which is the prophet. It's simply because there's no other way. God is trainer. He has to make us to believe to something bigger than what we have, and so we're not depressed. So he has to create belief in the past with us. So if Muhammad says, I am God, people say, who, how? How could you be God? Look, you're just like us, with the same limitations. So Muhammad says, no, I am from myself. I'm coming on behalf of myself. But he doesn't say that. He says, I'm coming from Allah. But he himself is the Allah. But he says, I'm coming from Allah. Allah is talking to him in his word in Quran that he is from Allah. I'm coming on behalf of myself. It's like a king that he knows he has to go to a certain territory of hymns, and he doesn't trust anybody else. So he has to go there, but he knows if he goes there in his full power, people will kill him or there will be chaos. So he just goes in an alias and calls himself somebody else. He just wants to know what's happening. Because if Muhammad shows obedience and servitude to a higher power, like Allah, people would follow him. They say, look at his sincerity. He talks not about himself, about somebody else. People are foolish, have been and they are and they will be. Relatively, of course. So this is why he would use the alias of the prophet. But in reality, as I said, it is him. Not his full power completely. Absolutely not. The difference between God and his manifestation, or the prophet, that is alias on the earth, is your difference between you and your picture. Infinite differences. But they are nevertheless both one and the same. Just like looking at a mountain from far away. Something from far away. So why do we call somebody a prophet? I have been attacked, I should say, thousands of times. They're telling me that, why are you, Mr. Temori, subdue yourself, subjugate yourself to a person called Baha'u'llah? Why do you see him bigger and better than others? Sure, he was a great man. He was a genius, but he was a man. Everybody else, like that. What about Einstein? What about thousands of others? Why are you seeing him to be a different personality? You know, isn't this a racism that you're bringing another man higher than yourself? You're trying to discriminate us, between us, to say one of us called prophet is better than others, and then creating a chaos. Man loses his power when he knows he's powerless in front of something. I said, well, there's no politics involved. This is the truth. So, having said that, God, alias God, avatar of God, is the prophet. Who is the prophet? Prophet is not definitely a human being like you and I. The difference that exists between us and Jesus Christ and Krishna and Buddha and Baha'u'llah is the same difference that we have with animals. An animal can never become a man because it does not have the power of thinking. His thinking is like a short circuit. It's more like a floppy disk installed on his head to do certain things. It can't go beyond that. Man does not have that boundary. It's a different program. The same thing exists between us and the Prophet of God. So one of this says, oh, great, Mr. Temuri. You are the inventor of a new species in the earth called prophets. We're not human. We don't need to wait for the aliens to come from the other places. We have one right among us. That is Jesus and Muhammad and Baha'u'llah. How would you be able to prove this, though? You're a scientist and scientifically minded person. How are you going about to prove that prophets of God, they are like Tarzan in jungle? They are brought and grown among the monkeys. Monkeys even help them to do a lot of things at the beginning as a baby, you know. They help them to grow, they feed them. But when Tarzan grows up, he finds that he's not that monkey. He has different power. He just discovered within himself that he is not a monkey. He's human, he's different. His species is different. The story of the prophets of God are exactly the same thing. But the question is that, what are the evidences for that? That's what I've been told. There's many of them. So, let's just get to a few of them. One of the reasons. One of the number one reasons that a prophet of God, such as Baha'u'llah, he's been prophesied in all the religions of the past. Now, this needs a bit of fairness and really that a spiritual power to think and contemplate on this properly. I can't explain all of that to you in a short time, but I looked at the website. I looked at it many times. It's www.bci.org/prophecy-fulfilled, which then you go to Welcome to the Prophecy Fulfilled web pages. There you can see the prophecies of Buddha, in Hinduism, of Muhammad, of Krishna, and so on and so forth. Briefly though, explains. But if you want to get as a Christian to a good book, would be The Thief in the Night by William Sears. You read that book and you tell me, your own conscience, that isn't this the truth, that when Jesus Christ says, they tell him where you're coming, he says in the east. Another place in the Bible says when the throne of God comes is in Elam. Elam is a province of Iran, it still is, and east of Jerusalem is Iran. And Buddha says Amit Abha comes from the west in Holy Land. So west, when he was in Bengal, you know, hits us right again to Iran. And they tell him, when are you coming? The dates that are given conclusively goes to 1844 in the Bible. The date that is so amazing coincides with what Islam gave the same date. They gave 1260, which is also in the Bible, the 1260. But the 1260 is 1844. If you count it from Mohammedan area, it's 1260. If you call it from Christ, it becomes 1844. If you're going to the Old Testament, from the third rebuilding of Jerusalem, it becomes 2,300 years. So the date is there, the time is there. It is conclusive for those who want. In this prophecy is fulfilled. If you go, never mind Baha'u'llah, even it refers to 1956. It's amazing that the date 1956 is given. That's the day I was born. So this is one of the reasons. Nobody else has really been prophesied such as this. One of them. You want more scientific reason? Is this. The writing of Baha'u'llah, if you read it, he has 100 volumes, many of them translated in English. But you get the compilations of the work of Baha'u'llah as one big book. You read the book. This has been revealed when Baha'u'llah was a young man, 35, 36, when it is old age, close to 80 years old. You read it within this span of 45, 50 years. There is no trace of evolution of thought, of mind, of literature, of art. There is no way that we can trace that Baha'u'llah's mind at one point it was not as good and later on developed. There's no trace of evolution in his thought. So again, what kind of a mind is that it has not developed? What kind of a genius is that? Was Einstein born like that? No. Shakespeare's writing was great as soon as he started to write now. But Baha'i was all throughout the same consistency is there. And the content and presentations, it is impossible to compare it to anybody else. I've seen some misguided Baha'i doctors, I'm not mentioning his name right now, but he's trying to find the evolutionary pattern in the writing of Baha'u'llah. The fool, he thinks that Baha'u'llah's writing changes and becomes better and so on. It's not the case. You be the judge yourself. I'm not a man of argument. Definitely, I like to debate and present reasons, but at the same time, I do not like to dispute. But you just go and see for yourself. See the book of Baha'u'llah called the Book of Certitude, and one of his last books is the Epistle to Son of the World. You read those two books and tell me that, based on the content, if you are a great English-speaking person, or you look at it in Persian, original language, there's no way that we can find to trace any evolution pattern in that. Another one of the things that is very amazing about the prophets of God is they're just amazing influence they have. No one, no man in the earth has produced such a power and influence among the people. When you look at the history of Christ, 6-7 years old, that's all his ministry was, about 6-7 years. What he has written in the Bible, if you put it all together, it becomes a few pages. Nothing new. You could call it regurgitations. It's been told in the Old Testament and the books before. His life is so sure he died on the cross, but so is Spartacus, so is many others. Why is it that the whole world, 1 billion, especially a stubborn, big-minded man in Europe, such as Englishman, they all bow down in front of this Jewish man. It's a slender, thin Jewish man called Jesus Christ otherwise. Why? Why in the name of Muhammad, the Arabs, who's not really an Arab? In Arab they call him Mustarab, means the person who became an Arab, not originally Arab. He comes among them, he produces a book. My God, there are so many grammatical mistakes in it. Everyone knows that. The life history of Muhammad Allah Jesus Christ is very, very social, apparent. He had many wives. He didn't suffer the way that, even Christ was crucified for others. How? Why people are just bowing down in front of him? You have to know what Arab was, the Saudi Arabian people at that time. So many thousand years, none of these people, they could create a kingdom. They couldn't. Nobody could put Arabs together. They're just Bedouin. They were independent and they had to go in their own ways. There was no way to create an army out of these people, a power. Muhammad did that. There is no sociological explanation. What is his book? What is his lifestyle? None of that really. Where did they get this power? The single mission of the Prophet of God, which is the alias of God, is not book, is not writing, is none of that. That's just simply creating a gravitational field in the middle of the people. And people just orbit around them. The mission of the prophets of God is gravity. What's not there to organize things, just like in the nature. He is the sun that makes all these planets to orbit around. And Muhammad is that sun, Christ is that sun, Buddha is that sun. It just comes and makes everyone to go organize and orbits around it and create a humongous organizations of humanity that benefits individual mankind in many, many ways. That's why we are here. So that's the third one again. And you could say another one is that, unlike any other religious man, religious groups and whatnot, they go exactly against the society. Some people say to me that, oh, Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran, look at his power. He brought the Shah of Iran